I am Judas Iscariot. I was called by Jesus to be one of the disciples. I was a zealot. Zealot were a radical political party who would do anything they could to rid the country of Rome and usher in a Jewish empire. I had assumed that Jesus was a Messiah for the Jewish people. Let me tell you my story. The disciples were with Jesus, and Jesus started talking about going back to Jerusalem. Imagine that, I thought. Jerusalem, that place with such hatred and hostility. Jesus then talked about suffering and dying. That is not Messiah talk. Messiahs are not supposed to suffer and die. Jesus talked about us taking up our crosses, denying ourselves, and following Him. Now, I was prepared to give up my life for the cause if need be, but not if He was going to be acting so irresponsibly. Did He not know how to be a Messiah? Messiahs do not suffer and die. I was about to leave Him, but then I thought, maybe He'll change His mind, or maybe He does know what He's doing. I stayed, and of course, it was on to Jerusalem. He was determined to be there for Passover week. On the way there, we stopped at the small village of Bethany and had supper with Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. After supper, the most foolish thing happened. Mary took this bottle of very expensive ointment and opened it and poured it on Him. My God, I thought, doesn't anybody understand? I said to Mary, don't you realize that ointment could have been sold for a lot of money, and that money could have been used to feed the poor, help the sick, and help all those who were coming forth to support our cause? Doesn't anybody really understand? Doesn't anybody understand the seriousness of our situation? I was so disappointed. The next morning was the first day of Passover, so we made our way to Jerusalem. On the outskirts of the city, I noticed people had lined the streets. They were holding palm branches, and they were singing, Hosanna, Hosanna to the King, God bless the King, God bless the King of David. And it dawned on me, this is what Jesus had been waiting for. He was waiting to be proclaimed king in the holy city of Jerusalem. He was going to be proclaimed king in the city of David, the city of God. Oh, I was so proud to be part of that little caravan making its way into the city. I walked as close as I could to Jesus. I wanted people to know that I was His friend. I was part of His inner circle. You won't believe, though, what happened. Amongst the echoes of Hosanna, Hosanna, Jesus stormed into the temple and to the court of the Gentiles. And with a rage and a fury, He turned over the tables and chased out the money changers. And then with that same rage and fury, He shouted at them, don't you realize that this house is a house of prayer, and you have made it into a den of thieves? Doesn't He understand, I thought? We could use the money from the money exchange and the inspection of animals for our cause. We are going to need everything we can if we ever hope to overturn Rome. And then, if that wasn't enough, he began talking about the Pharisees. Did he not know how to be a Messiah? I was exasperated. I didn't know what to do. Could it be that I had to force him to be my kind of Messiah? Would someone have to force him to be the Messiah that God had called him to be? I knew that the authorities had wanted to arrest Jesus, but they didn't have the opportunity. You see, there was always a crowd around him. And if they went to arrest him with a crowd around him, they could incite a riot. And Rome did not take kindly of riots. So I knew a time and place. I knew when there'd be an opportunity when Jesus would be alone and they could arrest him without incident. So I went to the authorities and I said, for 30 pieces of silver, I will deliver your man. Now, I did what I had to do because I felt that Jesus had to be forced to be Messiah. I knew that God would not let his son die. I knew that once they came forward to arrest him, my fellow zealots would raise up, and then all the other people would raise up, and we would eliminate Rome and usher in the Jewish kingdom. I knew that God would not let his son die. That night, at the Passover supper, I had this strange and uneasy feeling. Every time Jesus looked at me, I felt that he knew what I had done. I started to have second thoughts, thinking, have I done the right thing? But I quickly pushed those thoughts away because I did what I knew had to be done. Jesus had to be forced to use the power of God that was within him. Later that night, Jesus began talking about one who would betray him. I thought the other disciples may catch on, but I didn't worry about it because I knew that they would understand once it was all over. Finally, Jesus began talking about going to the garden to pray. So I slipped quietly away and went to the authorities. I told them I would deliver Jesus that night. If they went to the garden, I would identify him with a kiss. Everything happened just as Jesus had predicted. He was in the garden, quietly praying, and the authorities entered. I slipped over beside Jesus and kissed him on the brow. Immediately, though, I knew that something was wrong. His skin was hot and damp. He was nervous and edgy. I'd never seen him like this before. In all the other crises, he was of the utmost composure, with strength and courage. What is happening, I thought, though I didn't have much time to think about it, as the authorities were there arresting Jesus. So I just stood back and waited for the miracle of God to happen. Nothing happened. Nothing happened. Jesus just let them arrest him without him raising a single finger. He even rebuked Peter when Peter came to intervene on his behalf. Jesus just went submissively to the house of Caiaphas. He went to the palace of Pilate, to the palace of Herod, and back to the palace of Pilate. Not once did Jesus raise his voice in protest. Not once did Jesus raise his voice to defend himself as I knew he could. As we walked from place to place that evening, I overheard some of the soldiers saying about execution. I heard some even say crucifixion. Imagine that, crucifixion. That process of the evening went through to the early hours of the next day. And I thought, when are you going to rescue your son, God? God, what about your son? What about the Messiah? What about the kingdom? What about us Jews? God, what are you going to do? What are you going to do, God? Apparently, God wasn't going to do anything. Apparently, God was going to let them kill his son. You should have heard what they said to him. They said he was a blasphemer and other ugly names. Oh, they were so cruel to him. They spit on him and they hit him. Now, every ugly word and every blow to him felt like it was coming from me. This is not the way I had planned things to turn out. I hadn't expected them to be so cruel to him. I had thought for sure that God would be there to rescue him, but there was no God to rescue him. So I looked at that filthy money, those 50 pieces of silver, and I went back to the authorities and I threw the money down at their feet and I said to them, he's innocent. He is an innocent man. He's innocent. One of them started scurrying around and picking up the money. Another said to him, what will you do with that blood money? Blood money? Imagine that, blood money on my hands. No, he's innocent. He's innocent. Oh God, what have I done? What have I done? Why me, God? Why me? Why was I one to commit the crime of the century? Why was I the one to act with such stupidity and ignorance? Why could I not have understood what was really happening? Why me, God? Why me? Yes, I am Judas Iscariot. I am condemned to perdition. I betrayed Jesus for 30 pieces of silver, but others have betrayed him for much less. Unlike Peter, I did not go back to him for his mercy and forgiveness. I missed my chance to receive his grace and love. But you have a chance. You have a chance. Yes, I was part of the force that put Jesus on the cross. I was part of the force that caused him excruciating excruciating pain. I helped kill Jesus. But I have a message for you. I have wonderful news. He did not stay dead. Jesus arose. His ministry arose. His ministry is alive. It lives. It lives for all of us.